Yeah, so hello everybody. This is June 10th, 2020. Kiara here for our tri-weekly meditations. So welcome wherever you are in this world. And let's see where we go today. So Yvette, Anne-Marie, hi. So anyone have a question? Hi Nelly. Well, I notice I'm wearing this Peruvian shirt. I was traveling through South America about, I think this must have been about 10, 12 years ago. And maybe there's one experience I could share. And especially in some countries in Central South America, there seems to be a lot of duality, even though in many traditions, like the ancient Inca tradition, they've made great efforts to move out from duality. And this duality is prevalent in terms of this, even with shamans. It's like black magic and white magic, and black magicians are attacking white magicians, and white magicians are trying to protect people from black magicians. And it's like, what's all this about? And it's like a power struggle that happens, which is also happening very much in our current world. What do we do with all this? There's always people who are trying to protect themselves from the ill effects of someone else's manipulation. And in that protection, they weaken themselves even more. Or they need to protect because they feel like they're losing something of themselves, or losing something of their power, energy. So I think this is something that many of us are experiencing right now with this virus. What is this virus? It's a reflection of our collective fear. If we were not in fear, the virus would not need to be there, and the agendas around the virus would not need to be there. It's like we give ourselves over to an agenda because of our fear, and then what takes over is the agenda. And then we get stuck with feeling sorry for ourselves, feeling manipulated, feeling isolated, and out of touch with ourselves. So it all comes back to, where does the power come from? Where does the light come from? And can we trust that? And if we don't trust, we go right back into fear. And so starting to talk about being in Central and South America. And I had the experience one time of being out on a boat in the middle of Lake Atitlan, and we were doing a ceremony, and suddenly a big storm came up. And it was great, we had finished the ceremony, and a few of us just jumped into the lake to experience the power of the storm, the waves, the wind. And it was great for a while. And then suddenly I found myself just being pulled down. And it was a bit scary. It's like, what do I do now? I can't hold myself up. I can't, I'm normally a fairly good swimmer. and I was just being pulled down. And it wasn't something that I could identify. It wasn't from lack of buoyancy. And in fact, it turned out that the night before this, one of the women in our group had had a dream that I was being offered as a sacrifice to the denizens of that lake, which was an ancient civilization that still existed beneath that lake, whatever that means. But it was very real. And so finally I just, swallowed my pride, and I started waving my hands and yelling for help, and someone tossed a life jacket, life ring, pulled me out. And for a long time I wasn't in my body. I just wasn't in my body. I was still outside. I was still in that vortex. And I learned a lot about fear from that experience. It's like, what does fear do? It takes you out of your body. And what does trust do? It brings you into your body. And most of the time, we're not able to really experience ourselves in our body. We often find that, we're half in our bodies, or we are susceptible to being attacked because of not being present. And if I recognize that I am here as the self, it's very different from I am here as a personality structure. And if that personality structure can be dissolved into the self, the fear doesn't need to be there, because then there's trust to replace that. So in that experience, I was actually learning to create a bridge by going deep into the fear that was being held within the body. So fear is not just something that we hold in the mind. It's not just something that's an outcome of circumstances around you. It's not even just that we are in a situation or energy field that carries fear, and so we become sensitized to that and open to that. Oftentimes it's something that we actually hold within the cells of the body. And this level of fear is perhaps the hardest to deal with, because it's very unconscious. We may imagine that we're in a fairly safe place within ourselves, but still there's something where we attract situations that are fearful, or illnesses, or circumstances, or manipulations. And so what do we do with all this? So going into the subconscious fear is maybe one of the hardest things that we can do. And so when we do the practices, the Inca practices, where we are working with the Sami, we can invite that Sami to go into the subconscious fear. We may not know what that fear is. We normally don't. We just notice that there's some uneasiness, some lethargy, some inclination towards maybe getting sick, feeling extremely tired, feeling really reactive emotionally, or very cut off, isolated. All these are manifestations of something that we can't quite grasp, but is something that is coming up to the surface. So in those moments, all right, we just open ourselves up, open doorways between the worlds, and simply invite the Sami to go where it needs to go. Ask for help, ask for support, connect with high self, connect with aspects of your own divine being that are always here, your angelic helpers, your animal guides, your masters and teachers, whoever you feel safe with and connected with, the Divine Mother if you wish, the Earth Mother. All these beings are always present, and it's our disconnection based on fear that creates the separation. So we can simply ask and then open the doorways, allow the Sami to flow, and trust that it's going where it needs to go and releasing what needs to be released. Keep in that space for a while. Keep in that space for a day or two. Just keep that window open. Ask for that window to stay open. Ask to become present to what that energy is. And then just be aware of sensations in the body. Whatever comes up. Drink lots of water, because your electrical body is now being stimulated very actively. And then just allow a movement. Sometimes you may go deep into some symptoms, and as those symptoms release, the energy releases. Or sometimes those symptoms bring up a quality of emotion that begins to unveil itself. It may be something from the ancient past. A memory comes up that you hadn't known. Whatever it may be, disidentify from that. This is not who I am. After that experience of almost drowning, there were times when I came close to experiencing that same panic in my body. It's like suffocation, not being able to breathe. Claustrophobia. I could follow it back to other times, in other lifetimes, where other things happened, including initiations where I didn't make it through. Being locked up inside a dark cave or sarcophagus or whatever it may be, and wasn't able to make it through to achieve that light body activation. So we all have past experiences, and it's okay. We've been through many, many lives. We've gone through many, many initiations. We've failed sometimes. We've passed other times. And this time we're here, going through the mother of all initiations. And this time we're here to support each other to make it through collectively and as a planet. And we have the same events, we have the same energies in resistance that have always been here. And this time we can say, okay, it's time to let go of all of that hucha, that ancient collective hucha that has been controlling and shaping humanity for many eons. Let's let go finally and move onwards into wholeness and light. So it takes a decision, a really clear, strong, uncompromising decision from deep inside. And when that decision is made, that intention is clear, the universe supports that. And we'll go through times when we need to make that decision on an individual level. And now we're being confronted with situations in our collective field where we need to make that decision on a collective level. Let's break out of all those dualities and all those fears and all those oppositional energies and all the satanic cults and black magic and everything that has held us down and trapped us in this cage of manipulated duality. It's not who we are. Once we know who we are and ally with that, all this can be released. Alright, so there's a message from Anne-Marie. That was my question about a clearing ceremony. My question was about clearing a house with a big Nazi history. Just by being there in the heart and being present is enough. Being there is always enough. But sometimes when that fear comes up, we cannot be there. We're um, trapped in the fear. And once that comes up, the energies in that environment tend to take over. Um, so if you're in a house where there's been negative energies and there's still ghosts of the past present there, you can go in there when you're in your clarity and just have a conversation with those energies, release them, let them go. They'll be happy to be released just as much as anybody else. There is no aspect of reality that enjoys being dark, that enjoys being disconnected. We have chosen that at times because we didn't think we had a choice. So when we talk about the Nazi period, when we talk about any of these collective horrors, things happened, and there's been collective asuric energies that have been shaping some of this. Those asuric energies are still here. It's not over. They're very much at work in the world right now. They're very much at work in global events right now. You know, at some point we could investigate that together a little bit more. But not from a place of giving up power over to that. Not from a place of fear. Not from a place of duality where we feel like that energy has power over me or over humanity or over the earth. No. It's simply recognizing that these are all a part of dance of remembrance. And some of the steps in this dance are difficult to learn, but we can learn them, overcome these challenges and move on. So if you're in a house where there's, or any situation, any energy fields where there's been violence, death, fear, connect with your own Sami, connect with your own source. And then from that space, allow your Markaba to expand outside, very intentionally, through that entire space, inviting your guardian angels, your helpers, the dream warriors, to be there with you and hold that space until it's done. You can also invite this in your dream states, and often things happen in your dreams which are very, very powerful. Last night I spent hours just wandering through all kinds of realms. Many of them were magical realms, realms that we haven't seen on this earth before. And sometimes I had to go through realms where there was a lot of ingrained darkness in order to confront those realities in the subconscious and let them go. And whether it's the personal subconscious or the collective human subconscious, doesn't matter. It's all hucha. It's just hucha. And once we recognize this as simply hucha, and hucha isn't something evil or bad, then we don't need to go into fear. Then we recognize that we have the power to transmute within ourselves, that we are alchemists. And so part of our job here on this earth as alchemists is to simply be available to the darkness as a way into the light. So in that space, you're not creating a polarity of opposition between darkness and light. You're not resisting something that's dark or being afraid of something that we've labeled as dark. Then the dark can use our channel in order to experience the light. So it's So that awareness is helpful. And then, if we can do it on our own, great. If not, we can create support for ourselves collectively. And this is really something that we are going through collectively now. This is really our opportunity as a human species, as never before. Yvette is asking, Kiara, can you tell us something about your spiritual guides? Yeah, there are so many guides that we all have, sometimes known, often unknown. In my case, many of the masters of the Far East, the lineage of Babaji, the lineage of Isa, have been very much in my life for a long time. The lineage that comes from Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, all of these lineages are very much outside of duality. They're offering us a space where we can realize our full potential as human beings, as the next human species. It's the recognition that we don't need to be restricted in the conditioning of our history, whether it's social conditioning or even spiritual conditioning. But we have conditioning around who we are, and these lineages are about helping us to break out of that conditioning, to discover who it is we really are as individuals and as a species, as a planetary consciousness. And along the way there's been many others that I could name and identify, others that are simply there in presence. I think as we begin to open up the channels, connect with the upper worlds, connect with the lower worlds, we find that there are so many with us all the time that are just longing to participate in this. All they need is our permission and our invitation. And they're here to assist and to support, because this is their work as well. And somehow we as humans, being in physical bodies, have a connection with this world of duality that they don't. And so if we invite them, if we open to them, they can come through and will come through to support and assist. And this is important to ask. Yes, is it okay asking for the consciousness of humanity? Of course. That is part of our work here. It's like we are a fractal of all of humanity. And if we just become aware of that, then we can ask on behalf of all of humanity. Yeah, the mother of all initiations guides us. It's interesting when we talk about the mother. In Latin, the word mater is mother. So it's like we have created such a distinction between the physical and the spiritual, and it's not real. The mother is present within matter. If we enter deeply enough into the heart of the earth, into our bodies, into the physical realms around us, we experience the mother. So the mother is not some mysterious, mystical aspect of creation outside of us. It's within everything, within creation, as much as outside and beyond creation. So that veil that we create between creation and creator is an illusion. And this is really what the Hindus have been saying. It's the veil that's illusion. Um, the illusion is not that this reality exists, but that this reality is veiled and separate from that reality beyond. So the mother holds the veil, and so as we go through the veil in harmony with the light of the mother, we discover that the mother is who we are. I mean, call it anything you want, mother, father, God, creator, great spirit. But what I'm saying is that this spirit, this life force, this primal force is not confined to one aspect of creation or beyond creation. It's everywhere in everything, including in what we consider the subconscious or the inconscient or even darkness. And once we know that, there's no fear. And that fearlessness is the key to overcome and to awaken. So it reminds me of the story of Jesus to set people free in the underworld after dying, or something like that. Yeah, so the underworld is what? They're realms where we get stuck. It could be collective realities, could be personal realities, but we're stuck because we choose to get stuck, not because someone else imprisons us, based on our on our unworthiness, our fear of something outside of us, heaven, hell, this whole idea that we can be punished by some version of God or some kind of power that can overrule our own choices. It's all us. It's all who we are. The entire drama is who we are. You know, the one who's outside of all this, the one who writes the script, the one who acts out the script, the one who's sitting in the audience watching the drama. It's all us. It's just that we get trapped in different aspects of it at different times and lose our ability to hold it all together. Petra says animals can be very healing. What role do they play? Yes, animals, all creatures, visible, invisible, elementals, angelic beings, dragons, they're here as part of this web of life. And it's our separating ourselves from the web of life that creates the problems. So of course animals, they're so emotionally connected and they're so courageous in their being, playing out the role they're meant to play on this earth. Learning to become friends with animals, all animals, domestic and wild. You meet an elephant walking along the road, make friends, or rhino, or a wildcat, make friends. How do you do so? It's not like you're throwing caution to the winds, but you're coming into alignment with yourself and inviting that power that that animal represents to enter through you. And then you watch and see what that animal does. Or you just invite that in your meditations or in your dream states. How can we teach this to smaller children? Well, maybe we can just listen and be willing for them to teach us before they get thrown out of that state of balance. which they come in with, and that state of fear that is created to replace that wholeness that they already know within themselves. So just remind them of who they are, instead of entraining them into our world, which is saturated with so much fear and conditioning, so many no's, so many rules, so many illusions. Just allow them to remember who they are, and keep asking them to share their world with us, their experiences, their dreams, their realities. And when they know that it's safe for them to be seen and heard as they are, accepted fully as they are, then they can enter into those realms more gainfully. And as we connect with that inner child, the elemental spirit within ourselves, that also is important. It allows us to connect with that same integrity, that same life force, that same wholeness within ourselves, and then radiate that everywhere we go, consciously and unconsciously, personally and collectively. Alright, so maybe this is our meditation for the day. Just to remind you about the webinars that are going on. So we're in the middle of a webinar right now. Those of you who have done work with me are welcome to join. And we'll be going deeper into Ilahinur, Gayanur, some of the Inca practices. Just contact Jamie if you're interested. jamiefranken@hotmail.com. We'll also be doing a series starting in July. So Inca practices, Ilahinur, Gayanur practices, and then going into some deeper work where we can support a planetary healing process. This is why we're born right now. So we can truly, truly support Gaia as part of Gaia at this time in making her journey into the next stage of her evolution. All right. Oh, I see Patty there. Yeah, so, the dolphins, speaking about animals, dolphins are so precious as teachers, as companions, as just vibrant beings of delight. And if you would like to join me to go swim with them in November on Patty's boat, just contact me. I think many of you are coming or have told me you're coming, and we'll check in with Patty and make sure that the way is clear in terms of all the quarantines being lifted, and then let's do it. Alright, so thank you, all of you. And as Pia says, love, light, and happiness to the world. Blessings, enjoy, aloha. Oh, also, just to say that starting next week, I'll send you a link, but I'm working with a friend of mine, David Shurjan, to create these weekly podcasts. The theme is Age of Pandora. What does that mean? So please join in. All right. Blessings and love.